Most families don't miss dementia because they don't care. They miss it because they're looking for memory loss. Early dementia rarely looks like forgetting names, so families mistake neurological changes for stress, personality shifts, or normal aging. And when these early signs are misunderstood, caregivers respond in ways that unintentionally increase fear, resistance, and emotional damage. I want to tell you about a family I worked with. They didn't come in worried about memory. They came in exhausted. The father had become argumentative in ways he never had before. He made impulsive decisions. He reacted emotionally to small things. And then when the family questioned him, he snapped. When they corrected him, he shut down. So every interaction turned into conflict. They kept saying, well, he's just been difficult. He's always been stubborn. He knows better. He just won't listen. What they didn't realize was that they weren't dealing with attitude. They were dealing with a neurological change. And by the time they realized that, trust had already started to erode. One of the earliest dementia signs that families miss is impaired judgment. This can show up as poor financial decisions, risky choices, trouble weighing consequences, difficulty understanding cause and effect. Families often say, it's his money. She's always been impulsive. He's just making bad choices. But these aren't moral failures. These are signs that the frontal lobes of the brain, the decision-making center, is under strain. So when caregivers respond with logic, confrontation, or lectures, the brain cannot process it because the very system needed to evaluate logic is compromised. So if you're noticing judgment or behavior changes and don't know how to respond, I created a free dementia caregiver resource inside my Rosabel community that explains early and safer response strategies. I also have a free resource on my website that walks you through how to communicate effectively with someone who is memory impaired, so you're not escalating fear or resistance without realizing it. Both links are in the description. Another early sign families miss is emotional reactivity, short temper, low frustration tolerance, sudden anxiety, suspicion, defensiveness. Caregivers often say they have changed. They're not themselves anymore. That's because dementia affects the brain emotional regulation centers. When these areas are compromised, the brain shifts into threat mode faster. The person feels unsafe even when they can't explain why. So when caregivers argue, correct, or push for insight, the brain hears danger, not help. Responding without making things worse means shifting from correction to calming, less explaining, more reassurance, fewer words, slower pace. How you respond early shapes the entire dementia journey. When caregivers argue, rush, or insist on being right, the person learns they're not safe. When caregivers slow down, redirect, and validate emotion, trust is preserved. This doesn't mean ignoring safety concerns. It does mean addressing them differently, redirecting instead of correcting, focusing on emotional safety before facts. Early responses don't just reduce conflict, they protect dignity. Once dignity is lost, everything becomes harder. If this helped you understand the early signs family miss and how to respond without making things worse, you'll want to watch the next videos on my Dementia Pillar Series. In the next video, I'll break down how to communicate with someone living with dementia in a way that reduces fear, resistance, and shutdown. And if you want practical tools, ongoing guidance, and supported caregiver community, join us at rosabelsoulfield.com/rosabelievers. You do not have to navigate this alone.